What's up, YouTube? This is Swide from Hebrew Legends, and I am here today with Clifford, one of our leaders in Hebrew Legends. How you doing, Cliff?
I'm okay.
Good to hear it, man.
Um, yeah, so we're just gonna talk about LaLoon. And as Swide said from the introduction, I'm Clifford from Hebrew Legends, and the so-called specialist with LaLoon, I guess. I don't know.
You're definitely the specialist of LaLoon in the
All
clan.
right, so let's get into it.
All right, man. So here's what we're kind of. Let me give you guys kind of a breakdown of what we're gonna do. We're gonna call this video something about the maybe the pitfalls of LaLoon, common pitfalls of LaLoon, and how to avoid them. We're going to show a couple of the attacks from our past war, Town Hall 9 LaLoons, and show the failures that happened on a base for any given reason. We're going to talk through what we think those pitfalls are. Cliff is going to kind of walk us through why specific Town Hall 9 LaLoon approaches fail and how to avoid that. And then we're going to show just one example of a successful attack and how the small things, small tweaks in deployment and other types of troop composition and things like that really make a difference. I'll take us into this first replay. Um, just our past war. It was against a Chinese clan, um, but I obviously don't know how to pronounce their name, sadly.
Yeah.
Um, but we're going to look at Orforog's attack on their number 19. And it's just a LaLoon attack. Um, Scrolling through here looking for it. There it is. Just a LaLoon. Obviously, it's a failed attack. It doesn't go well. But I'll play it for you guys here.
So we're just gonna play it and then talk about it afterwards.
Yes, yes. I'll just walk through what's happening here. Shattered from the southwest corner. He bombs in his kill squad, just a couple whizzies cleaning up the trash on the outside. Gets part of the lure from one of his golems, and then he drops the king. Drops the jump spell on that compartment, trying to get into both of these ADs, the air sweeper and the queen. The rest of the CC comes out. He lightnings the witch, gets her, which is great, gets most of the CC. Queen takes down the balloon. Rages his king, but his king, after killing the queen, dies. And you can see what's happening here with his AQ. She's gonna get targeted, and she's about to take a walk, and he sees that, so he just goes ahead and starts the deployment. First hound goes across, second hound from the top, and he follows it up with two balloons on specifically targeted defenses. He comes in with his level 3 hound out of the CC, couple loons on a wizard tower, loons on archer towers around, and he just kind of peters out. These loons drop. That one kills the Expo, but this air defense is still up, and as you can see, just not enough loons left to do the job. So uh, the rest of the raid is cleanup of his queen, who has decided to wander all the way around the base, and will kind of end at the end. But um, I am going to take us back to the drawing board here. Cliff, what did you see in that attack, man? What do you think happened? I see you've already drawn kind of his loon deployments and whatnot.
Yes, I have. First off, just the biggest thing I saw, um, the rage spells could have been better, but let's talk about the shattered part first.
Sure.
Um, I like how he's trying to get the air sweeper with the shattered. That's not always necessary, but when you can, it's good. And
It's helpful.
the angle he comes in from, I don't know, it could have been better, but it was all right. The biggest thing is he dropped his king way too soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
His king
I
petered out
know
really early.
everybody talks about this and most people know it, but it's still a very common mistake. People drop their king in too soon, and then either the clan castle targets him or something else targets him first. And what I like to do is drop the king like right before I lightning the clan castle, so that he is walking in after the CC's already dead and dealt with, and so then you can rage him and get through a lot of structures.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna pull this up. I'll just pull the replay up again and walk us through just the first portion, so the viewers can see what you're talking about here. So those golems go down, just like Cliff is saying, uh, and here's the king already. And so he didn't get the full lure, just like Cliff said. So the king is going to get in here and eventually get ahead of the golems, and he's going to start taking the brunt of the damage from all of those nearby point defenses, the balloon out of the CC, and the queen and the king, the opposing royals. So that's without question kind of a problem. Um, Cliff, what else, man? What else do you think? Do you think he lost that raid in the initial shattered portion when his
I think
king?
he did because he didn't get the expo and he didn't get the other air defense, and then I don't know. I'm not sure if he could have corrected it. I really don't think. I mean, you were saying it might be possible if he had come from the opposite direction than he did.
Yeah, yeah. I was
Um,
thinking if he had come from, you drop a hound this direction
but
and then
I'm
drop another
really
one
not
here.
sure because those air defenses are so close together, and he only
Yeah,
got one of them.
yeah. I think you're right.
I don't think he had enough firepower to get around. So this was pretty much lost in the initial shatter part of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um,
Would you have changed? I mean, do you think the approach was bad? Do you think it was the early deployment of his king, or I mean, if do you think coming from due south would have changed anything?
I think that would have been better, and then the jump spell.
Jump spell, I was thinking kind of on that gold
Yeah,
storage.
I think I would have come probably from down here, and then tried to get my queen, like broken the funnel over here, and then tried to get my queen to take out this, and then work the way through here, and then still break open here with the golems in the same place, and
Interesting.
then have her turn in, and then still over here, everything looks good. And then I think the king later would have really changed that.
Yeah,
I mean,
certainly.
you have to look what can you get with your queen, because she is like the most valuable part of your attack. And
Right,
so
right.
if you can have her clear a lot, then you're pretty much good to go. And then if you can just get into the inside, and a lot of times it's really hard to do. You just have to feel out what's going to work, and sometimes it doesn't, and you
Right.
have to correct for that. And so I think what he does here and why it failed and how he could have gotten closer is if he didn't stick with the same, because he had an idea in his head about where he was going to come from. He was going to
Right.
start over on this side
Start
and then
here.
work his way around.
Right.
But if
Oh,
he had
right, right, right.
changed it once he saw that his shattered part failed and come from over here, he might have been able to correct it.
Yeah. So, I mean, what you're saying kind of is a lot of LaLoon attacks are just staying cool. Something doesn't go your way, you have to reevaluate and do it quickly on the fly, to see if maybe there's a better approach than what you thought initially.
Exactly, and it's really hard to do, and not many people can do it.
Right. And it does
Um,
take a certain amount of practice, like just getting
it
a feel
does.
for the
It
LaLoon
really does.
strategy. Yeah.
But his loon drops, as far as how he dropped and where he did drop, was
Yeah.
good. Dropping on the wizard towers, and this rage spell over here was useless, or it wasn't useless, but he could have moved it in a little bit and still picked up this Tesla
Yeah.
that was right here.
Certainly.
And let me see,
And I'm
the
just going to go back
Tesla,
and play this so they can catch up here.
the Tesla over here, and yeah, I mean, I think he definitely could have gotten closer. if he had changed his point of attack, but
Yeah, because
it it
he
it
decided to
was really
continue and just do it clockwise, but that didn't end up working out. Well, these two air defenses here and this third one that didn't go down ends up targeting the rest of his loons and whatnot, and it doesn't work out so well
so I think the bottom line with this one is it was lost in the shattered
in the
portion.
shatter portion. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, because like you can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to come in from that southwest side, and he's hoping his queen is going to take the jump, bounce in, and be able to finish off that center air defense. But what she actually does is stays behind, picks away at the buildings that are in her range in that initial compartment, and it ends up kind of messing with him. So it's kind of interesting.
Exactly, and that's also part of the new Queen AI.
Right, right. Which is another thing. It's just getting used to that, knowing what she's able to do, and not planning for anything more than that. So um,
Exactly.
let's look at another replay. Let's look at another
Okay.
fail. I am gonna go through. Let's see. I want to look at Eden's attack. I think on number 18. I'm gonna have to go through and look at it, but we'll show this fail, and then we'll go through and um, we'll just watch one attack that's significantly more successful, and just kind of talk about what that attack did differently. Um, so I got Eden's replay up here. He was R15, hitting their number 18, and he comes in with more or less the exact same troop composition, which is the standard 15 loons, couple bombers, 5 whizzies, a shattered, and 3 hounds. So I'll play this for you guys here, and we'll just talk about it a little bit. So he decides to come from the east. First golem goes down, second golem goes down here. They're both going to bunch up on that archer tower, which is fine for his purposes. It's kind of what he wants. He goes ahead and bombs them in. So after this goes down, they're going to wander back around, and then he is going to jump them into the core. Wizards cleaning the trash, which is great. They get an archer tower. They're going to end up getting this cannon as well. King and queen are already down. So queen should have been down initially because she can stay out of the range. The golems will tank for her, and she'll do work. The king came in really, really early, which is part of the problem, I'm sure, as Cliff will say later. Lightning goes down. He ends up missing the witch. She's still up, so she's going to create problems. She's never a problem for the actual LaLoon portion, but she is going to mess with your kill squad for a really long time. So you need to get her with that lightning spell more than anything else. Queen is now in here. She's retargeting the Expo now. He'll get that no problem. He had a whiz over here working on this air defense, but you can already tell he's not going to get it. So he goes ahead and starts his deployment. First hound comes in from the north, followed by just 1 loon on that archer tower, which is fine. 2 loons on defenses from there out. Gets him into that air sweeper really quickly, which is fine. This first hound already popped. Loons come in from the bottom as well as the hound. Rage goes on him there. This rage over here, which just faded away, was a little outside, which we'll talk about shortly. But you can just see these hounds are now separated from his balloons, in range of a Tesla and an Expo and a couple of those skeleton air mines. So you know what's going to happen. Too many defenses left. This air defense stayed up. And yeah, he's trying to drop whatever he has left, but you can tell that's kind of it. Cliff, walk us through this one, man.
The biggest issue, I think, possibly with better rage spells, and if you'd saved some balloons for that last wizard tower,
Yeah, right here on the back end.
yeah, he could have had a better possibility. I mean, the initial shattered portion was not that bad. I mean, he
Right,
didn't get everything he was planning and he wanted
right.
to, but it really. didn't cause the fail.
The air defense that stayed up was the level below max for Town Hall 9 air defense. So you're even saving damage doing that. That rage that you just drew, I think, was certainly part of the problem. He only ends up raging 4 loons by doing that. He sends one in, like you've pointed to here, on this top archer tower, but it ends up going down.
So we talked about the issues in the shatter with the last
Right.
one because the same thing with the early king. He also missed the witch, but that was all fine because he still got this expo and he got this air
Right.
defense, and that probably would have
And the
worked
queen.
out. But yeah, and the queen. But this rage spell over here, it just accelerated them in, and then once they got to these defenses, especially this expo, because it's so high
Mm-hmm.
health, they just kind of died
Yeah.
out. Um, so if he had saved that and used it right here, that would have been much better
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
would have accelerated them through. And then he could have put the next one over here, and that would
Yeah.
have
To
pushed
to
these
continue
through.
the trajectory around to the last air defense.
And so, really, the only issue was the loon drop and the lava drop.
Right.
And it was actually spells because he had pretty quick deployment, which is another big error that I see a lot, but it wasn't that bad in this
Yeah.
one.
And so normally people just take too slow. They kind of do like one compartment at a time. I think you were telling me, and they wait, and you can't build on any of the momentum of your lava hounds or the pathing of your loons
Right.
because things are dying off before you're even dropping the next set.
Right, and then if the momentum does get so far, sometimes they have to backtrack.
Right.
Like if you didn't drop soon
Right.
enough, then the big group will go back to another
Mm-hmm.
building. And then that it's all about momentum because you want them all sweeping around and to end up in the same place so that there's enough damage.
Right.
Um,
Right.
like with Town Hall 10, you want them to end up on the Inferno, and then once they take that down, it kind of the attack slows down a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
And one thing I actually want to say, and I'm going to pull up the video to do this just briefly, is that um, this heal spell, or I'm sorry, this jump spell is fine. He bombs in, and then his golems and his king are going to take this jump spell. One thing I just want to point out is save the couple of bombers in this case because a lot of people don't realize this, but this corner, you can jump that distance with a jump spell. Um, the diameter of a jump spell is really about 6.5 spaces, and it can it can actually span this distance, no problem. So just for future reference, I see a lot of people do this because this just looks like a farther distance. It just looks a little further, but it's actually not. You can just drop a jump spell like you would
right,
and right on this gold storage, and it's gonna get into this compartment and get your golems in initially. So it saves you an
that
extra wizard or potentially another loon, which sometimes does make the difference one way or another. Interestingly.
right, and that would have been better. I'm not sure about the pathing because they probably would have gone to this cannon. They would have gone to this cannon and then probably over here, or the golems would have. So that might not have worked in the
Yeah,
situation.
I mean, it would have been interesting because
Um,
had he dropped, a golem from this side and then a golem from, basically a golem from the south, east, and the northeast. I think one golem would have
yeah. If
jumped
he
over,
had
and they would have split and gone in their separate compartments, which would have been
he could
ideal.
have even opened this up with wall breakers, let the golem in here, and then had the one that was on the archer tower go in through the jump spell. It would have gone over to this air
Yep.
defense, and the other one would have
Yeah.
gone to this air defense, and then they would
Yep.
have
They would have tanked different
merged on
sides.
this
Exactly.
expo,
Yeah, that's a good point.
which would have been a lot better. Um, but still, I mean,
He doesn't lose the raid there. I mean, he gets enough that he
right,
could have. Right,
right.
right. Okay. Let's. So, we've seen the problem be with the shattered portion. We've seen the problem be with spell deployment and kind of loon drops and uh, the problems with the hound movement separating from the loons and the high health units that create problems they're in. So let's look at one of the successes from this past war. Uh, and this is going to be Dawn. He hits their number 7. And I'm just going to go through the war map because he's up top. He's a newer member, but has a great attack. So I will.
I think this was actually his first war.
Oh, was it?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Well, starting off right. um,
Yes, he
so
are.
he shatters from the southeast. Just 4 wizards, actually 5 wizards, cleaning up trash on the outside. Couple bombers. Few bombers to let him in. Queen goes down early, which is great. You want her down as soon as possible because she's got a larger range than Wizzies. Golems are going to tank for her. As soon as his clan castle starts coming out, he then drops the king. So he waits on the king until that happens. A problem with the last 2 raids is they didn't do that and the king goes down too soon. But his king here, still up. He just rages it. It's now about 3/4 health. Because the golems tanked for everything, he's still got Wizzies up. His queen is full health. His king's even in the core at this point. He just starts his drop. Doesn't pay attention at all to that air sweeper. Just goes right at it, which you can do if your shatter portion works fine. He's only got 2 air defenses to deal with. He waits for his loons to take out this first layer of defenses, then rages into the second layer on both sides, so you can see. This hound just went down, one of them, and then moves on. You can see these loons pathing through the rage to the final high health units. I mean, just a well executed attack, and not an easy base to do it on. This is a variation of the Dragonflower base, and supposedly anti 3-star. So, I mean, it's a nice attack. I'm just going to fast forward the last 30 seconds or so here because it's all cleanup. He has a hound that didn't pop. And Cliff, I may ask you about that actually, just to start us off. What are your thoughts on hounds? I mean, do you think there's like a very, very small margin of error for dropping a hound too soon or too late and getting it to pop at the perfect moment while your loons are just, pathing over that last air defense or something? Or do you think, having a hound or 2 at the end makes or breaks the raid? What are your thoughts on that?
It all depends on your cleanup and how many pups survived from the hounds that did
Right.
pop. Because sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it didn't matter because he brought so many whiz that um, he had 1 extra for
Right.
cleanup.
Yeah, he brought 6 rather than 5, which is what the last 2 brought.
Right, right. So he had so many or he had 1 extra and he just used that for cleanup, and I think it was a pretty quick attack, like
Yeah.
2 minutes and 20
Yeah,
seconds
yeah.
or something.
I'll take a
So it
look.
didn't affect him, and I don't think there's a formula or anything to let you really determine when or where they're going to pop, and I don't really like the base design where people are putting their seeking air mines like away from the air
Yeah.
defenses
To try to
to
prevent them.
the strategy of not letting the lava hounds
Right.
pop, because in a good quick raid it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter sometimes, but not most of the time. So I just feel like it's kind of a waste of damage if you do it
Right,
like
right.
that.
Which is what I mean. A month or so ago, Hulk put up a video thinking, maybe that's the way to defend against LaLoon is to make sure the hounds don't pop and they don't have cleanup, so they can't do anything. But the
Well, and it does work sometimes, but it's kind of a risky
right,
thing because it's like you're counting on them destroying your whole base and then failing because of time.
right,
And I think it's better to have your base wreck their
right,
attack
as strong
than
as
it is
possible.
to just have them fail because of time.
Certainly, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what do you? I mean, the shatter portion goes really well, and as I was kind of narrating the events, one of the things that we talked about initially that Don ends up changing is dropping his king later, allowing his golems to tank for the king. Because he's brought the golems to tank. There's no use dropping the king too early and making it do the work that the golems should be doing. So those golems they split pretty early, which is fine. The CC came out. They split on the CC. The lightning was perfect. King went down and cleaned everything up. And by the time he was onto the queen and everything, Don had used his ability. He was back up to about 3/4 health, and he ended up, paving the way to destroy these two air defenses and this expo in here, which is really nice. What, Cliff, did you see as far as hound deployment and loon pathing that the last two attacks didn't have? What changed in this one?
Yeah, the king definitely helped. And then I don't know, he did an interesting thing where he just deployed. I've never really seen this style before. He just deployed one lava on the first air defense, and then he deployed two on the second, which I think Jake had a video about this, about how you have to look and see where the damage is, and a lot of people just do it because that's what they
Right.
see. Um, so I think that was smart here. Um,
And frankly, he does. Um, that first lava hound popped really early, um, but the loons that were pathing in, he had 4 loons, I think, headed to that air defense. And because that first hound popped pretty early, they don't get there for a little while. And his second hound, that's in the second one he sends up north, ends up not even popping, possibly because of that. I mean, would you have changed that? Would you have sent 2 hounds into that first air defense? Or do you think that the majority of the damage was in the upper half of the base and that was a good call?
I don't know. It's not like he had a lot of extra loons left at the end. He
Right.
only had like
Right,
three
yeah.
left. And so if that air defense didn't go down, he he played it very
Right.
close.
And I mean that last lound was seconds away from popping. Uh, I mean it's
Right, right. And it's actually facing off with a air
yeah,
skeleton that
right,
almost
right.
got it. So he actually got really lucky because the lava pups distracted that air defense long enough for the loons to get on top of it. But he even had wizards from his
Right.
shatter that would have
That
taken it
that
out
took the
anyway.
jump
So
spell in and then ended up, clearing out all this
it
stuff
was
in the
just
middle.
kind of a very close, but I don't even know if I want to say well executed because he kind of got lucky. Um, but I like what
Yeah. I mean
happened.
it's a much more I think it's a much more difficult base than the two we watched previously. And you know, close air defenses, but they're deep and you have to go over a lot to get to them. And his deployment is swift. It's much cleaner than the last two.
I do think though that I would have come from the opposite direction.
Okay.
Um, Instead of head on with this air
Yeah.
sweeper, I would have come from the opposite direction because all the pathing, because this air defense was taken out, all the pathing just kind of does a V into this air
Yeah.
defense, and then if you're fast enough, it'll go to this wizard tower, and then, or yeah, the wizard tower, and then to the expo, and then you're pretty much
Right.
done.
Right. Yeah.
And I think if he had done it like that, he would have had a lot of loons left over here, and then they would have come out through here and just taken it out
Yeah. I
really
think you have a good
easily.
point about that.
Um, the rages were good and they could have stayed the same. This one would have been moved over here um, if he had come from this direction. But I think definitely. Counterclockwise would have been better
Yeah,
for this
certainly.
base. And we also talked about momentum because the momentum of the attack was very
Yeah, yeah.
strange
It didn't.
because
Right.
it started off over here, but then it kind of stopped because of the air
Right.
sweeper, and then it came back over here, and so really the momentum was going like this, and then it went over here,
Yeah.
and this didn't really do anything. So you have to look at I guess the dynamics of the base and um, where you can gain speed and gain momentum with your
Right.
loons. And so he came from the opposite edge, and then the back end kind of gained the momentum, which is very strange, but it worked. So,
Yeah, and the thing is, that's what the air sweeper does. Is it halts your momentum, and the inverse of the air sweeper is the rage spell. The rage spell forces your loons quickly through defenses, paths them quickly, but they also end up doing more damage, so they move on more quickly as well. In that's the thing is you want to keep those loons like Cliff was saying, pathing in kind of a swift motion around the base, really making full use of those rage spells, which
right.
doesn't always happen.
It worked out. It was a good raid that could have been improved
Certainly,
upon.
yeah, couldn't agree more. Give
Anyway,
us give us a few takeaways. Just strictly speaking, on any given LaLoon raid, give us like two or three things that you absolutely have to do, or it's gonna mess up your raid.
the biggest one for me is that I see all the time is dropping the king late. You have to drop him really, really late because if he gets in and gets targeted by Wiz or whatever comes out of the clan castle, then he goes down and he's basically useless throughout the whole raid. And you want to utilize his rage ability um, because he can really tear through
Yeah,
a base.
absolutely.
The next one is quick deployment on your loons and your lavas because you like talking about the momentum of it. You want them going fast, and you want it all. You want basically to circle half or more of the base, and then have it all converge in the center. Because if you only circle like a quarter, and then you stop, and then that gets to the center, by the time that's in the center, then you're dropping your second wave. It just doesn't work
Right.
out. And then the last is saving balloons at the end of an attack um, for the wizard towers because they can be. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen a wizard tower really destroy the end of a raid, but I know it
Yeah,
can happen if all your balloons are
yeah,
at low health and then one wizard tower left
yeah.
standing.
It's happened to me
Um,
before.
and it's hard with Town Hall 9 because you don't have as many balloons as you do like on a
Right. With
Town Hall
Town Hall 10,
10.
you have 20 or so,
Um,
and 19 or 20, and
right.
as opposed to 15.
Right, so you really have to conserve them when you're Town Hall 9 and save like two or three for the end.
Yeah,
And
that's a good point.
I don't know, is there anything else you want to add?
I don't think so, man. I think that pretty much covers it. You know, maximizing the use of your spells, guys. Just like Cliff was saying, as the rage for the momentum that you're going to need, make sure you use the lightning spell effectively, the jump spell effectively. So often I see people bring, bombers or whatever it is, extra tanking to make sure units get through a certain aspect of the base when a clever placement of a jump spell or something else is going to solve that problem initially. So, I mean, it all goes into planning. Plan too much is my piece of advice. Work out the loon pathing and the hound pathing of a base. Think about, okay, if this goes wrong, what am I going to do? If I don't get this air defense or if this expo doesn't go down, am I still going to deploy in the same way? Those
Exactly.
kinds of contingency plans actually pay off in the middle of a raid. It helps you not to be so nervous or so tense, and really makes it more fluid throughout the whole process. So, um,
Right, so plan a lot, but then make sure you know if your plan fails, be good enough and calm enough that you can change your plan and correct it.
Right, which is
Because a lot of times, if part of the plan fails, people just keep charging ahead with the plan that they already formed that would have worked but didn't because part of it failed.
right, which is easier said than done a lot of the time. So practice, guys. I mean, you're gonna
Right.
fail your first few raids probably no matter what, unless you're born natural like Cliff. But there's
I'm not natural. It's a lot of time.
it's time, it's practice. That's a good note to end on. Cliff, thanks for stopping by, man. Appreciate you giving us a few takeaways for LaLoon strategies at Town Hall 9. Guys, we'll have a surgical hog vid out in a day or two, so be on the lookout for that. It'll just be me this time, but Cliff will be back
Well, you're
shortly,
the
I imagine.
surgical king, so
Yeah,
hey, thanks for having
hey,
me. It
absolutely,
was a
man.
lot of fun.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, this is Swide and Cliff from Hebrew Legends. You guys have a good one.